brands to actually give that as an update via OTA. Probably this is why Poco F1 is still remains the most liked smartphone on GSM Arena. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much. It is just because of your love and affection, guys. It's just because of your love and affection. But taking the spirit forward, we are bringing the Android 10 update to all of you guys who are using Poco F1. Thank you. The rollout has already started, so you should be getting it soon. Pretty much, this sums up our philosophy. Everything you need and nothing you don't. What do I mean by this philosophy? So the phone which we are planning to launch, Poco, we will focus on everything you need, but we will not focus on the features that is not going to add value. So that's how we take the decision-making process to the next level. With this philosophy, we are here to launch the new series from Poco, the Poco X series. Yeah. Yeah. The first product we are launching, we are calling it the Poco X2. Guys, let me make this very clear. This is not a successor to Poco F1. This is a new series we are launching. We are calling it Poco X series, and the first phone we are launching is Poco X2. So let's start this? Yeah. So let's talk about 4 key sections of the phone. First, display, performance, camera, and design. Let's start with display and performance, probably because all the gamers here will like those 2 sections, right? Yes. So let's talk about display. Poco X2 comes with a large 6.67-inch screen with an aspect ratio of 20:9. Let me explain you how this helps in your gaming needs. What you're seeing here is the background of the phone and a 16:9 picture outlaid on top of it. Now you can see there is already an area covered, but with the 20:9, you see a much larger viewing area. That gives a much better cinematic display. With this, what you can actually feel is your controls getting far wider, and you can actually focus on your gameplay. Maybe let's take another example. How many of you play PUBG here? Yeah, I was guessing so. Let's take example of a 16:9 display with a PUBG screenshot and a 20:9 as well. What you're seeing on your left is a 16:9, but on the right, 20:9. So you have a much better viewing angle, and at the same time, your controls are being far wider. So that's the beauty of having a 20:9 display. Guys, the next feature I'm going to talk about is my favorite feature in the display. Any guesses? I heard it right. Yes. We are now going to talk about the refresh rate. So I'm glad to introduce the Reality Flow 120 Hz display on Poco X2, which is smooth AF. Smooth AF, it is smooth and fast, guys. That's what we meant. It is smooth and fast, guys. So I'm guessing a lot of people know here what 120 Hz display can do. But let's try to understand what by a video, and let's explain it to ourselves. What I'm going to show here is a video which was shot on 60 frames per second, and it is played on a 60 Hz refresh rate screen. So as you can see, it's a very nice video. And when you're watching on a 60 Hz, you're actually seeing 60 frames per second. But with a 120 Hz, there is an option to put 60 more frames per second. So that's how additional 60 frames per second comes in. So the content should be 120 FPS, and you should watch it on a 120 Hz screen. And that's when it becomes a lot more smoother. Just take a look at the spokes on the wheel. It is so very clear. So that's the beauty of a 120 Hz display. Now that you understand the tech behind it, let me explain what are the benefits of it. There are 2 major benefits. 1, enhanced gaming. 2, enhanced app experience. What do I mean by enhanced gaming? So when we were talking to gamers, primarily the PC and console gamers, they've always put higher refresh rate as their #1 ask. Why is this the case? This is primarily so that they can react quickly to your opponents, respond faster, and it's just a lot more smoother, guys. In fact, we are bringing the 120 Hz touch polling with this 120 Hz display. Now, to make it even more clearer, let us take a look at the next video which I'm going to play. So what we are going to show here is a Poco X2 versus a Realme X2 comparison. The 60 Hz, Realme X2 has a 60 Hz, and a Poco X2 has a 120 Hz comparison. So here, what we are going to play are few games. So we are playing Alto's Odyssey here. On the left, you're seeing Poco X2. On the right is the Realme X2. See here on Realme X2, there are kind of jitters or stutters coming in, whereas Poco X2, it's much more smoother. So it gives you a very beautiful experience while you're playing games. And by the way, the Alto's Odyssey game is also very, very nice. It's just very, very nice. Now, I understand that 120 Hz display is good in terms of playing games, but please understand your apps and games should support 120 Hz. So here is a list of all the games that support 120 Hz. Some of the games include Modern Combat, Hitman Go, and Alto's Odyssey as well. So that's the 120 Hz display, which is very, very beneficial while gaming. Now to the second benefit, which is enhanced app experience. Let's talk about smooth day-to-day usage. Let us take a look at this video where we are using the apps which we primarily use like InShots and all, and see how the scrolling experience feels like. So again, Poco X2 compared with Realme X2. So we are using InShots app. Just see the way it kind of moves. It kind of flows. Whereas Realme X2, there are a little bit of jitters. Again, this video has been slowed down to understand it. Now let's take a look at an app like Instagram as well. Very smooth on Poco X2. Realme X2, in fact, there's even a problem with the loading, right? So you guys understand how beautiful a 120 Hz display brings benefits to your daily usage, right? But if that's so good of an experience, why is not everyone doing it? It's because, let's take a look at the kind of phones which are able to give higher refresh rate displays. For 90 Hz, you have to spend almost 28K. 120 Hz, almost a minimum of 38K. It's extremely expensive, guys. Let me show it in a graph, maybe. So if you see here, if the average selling price of a 60 Hz display is X, for a 90 Hz, you have to spend almost twice the amount. For a 120 Hz, almost thrice the amount. So we are glad to mention that Poco X2 is probably a step in that direction where we are planning to democratize by giving it at a much lower price. So that's 120 Hz, guys. It's an amazing feature. But one of the other problems along with the price is the battery usage. Many brands came up with higher refresh rate, but they had this problem of a lot of battery drainage. So what we did was actually use software to optimize that. So we created this feature called Intelligent Dynamic Refresh Rate Adjustment, where if you're using your phone, it pops up to 120, and if you're not, it comes down to 60. And that way, your phone lasts for longer. So that's display, guys. Reality Flow 120 Hz display, 20:9 large cinematic display, and intelligent dynamic refresh rate to keep your phone last longer. So is the display good? Yeah. So to the next section, performance. I'm sure all the gamers care a lot about how their phone performs. To talk about performance, Poco X2 comes with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 730G chipset. It is probably the most powerful Snapdragon 700 series from the 4G chipsets, right? It also comes with Adreno 618 GPU. This has 15% faster games rendering. Now, to understand this better, how powerful this chipset is, let us compare this with the other 700 series chipsets. First, let's take a look at the AnTuTu scores. As you can see, Snapdragon 730G pretty much beats all of them. Now, let us do something more interesting. Poco X2 has a 730G chipset. Realme X2 also has 730G chipset. Let us try to look at how the benchmark scores are for Poco X2 versus Realme X2. Surprise, Poco X2 beats Realme X2's AnTuTu score as well. Let's keep aside AnTuTu. Let's look at GPU scores. Even in GPU scores, Poco X2 outperforms Realme X2. Now let's do something more interesting. Let's run AnTuTu score for 5 times, one after the other. If you see here, for Poco X2 versus Realme X2, Poco X2 stays at the top continuously even after 5 cycles, whereas Realme X2's performance throttles over time. Now, why is this the case? 2 major reasons: better quality components and better software optimizations. What do I mean by high quality components? This is a learning which we picked from Poco F1 days, where we are bringing back liquid cool technology to help you with more sustained peak performance. What a liquid cool technology does is dissipate heat 300% faster than the ones without liquid cool technology. That way, your performance keeps in a straight line and always at peak, whereas ones which do not have kind of throttles. That's the hardware part. But also, we've done better core-level software optimizations. Let's take a look at the video to understand what we have done is we have actually taken 35 apps which we generally use, and we have tried opening those apps one after the other to see how Poco X2 performs vis-a-vis Realme X2. Let's take a look, guys. Yeah. So as you can see very clearly, Poco X2, even for the daily tasks, it outperforms Realme X2, just as seen in the video. Now, I know that it has a great chipset, brilliant liquid cool technology. Along with that, I'm sure you would need battery so that your phone can last longer, right? So for Poco X2, we are coming up with 4,500 milliamp hour battery, right? Thank you, thank you. So along with the 4,500 milliamp hour battery, we also have 27-watt fast charging support. But guys, we have the charger in the box. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So yes, it has a brilliant battery and a great charging speed as well. But now let's put this in comparison to understand how the charging efficiency is. As you can see in this graph, for 0 to 100, Poco X2 takes 68 minutes, whereas Realme X2 takes 76 minutes. So why is this the case? Please note, Realme X2 has 4,000 milliamp hour battery, Poco X2 has 4,500 milliamp hour battery. Not just this, it's not just the efficiency, but also the temperature while it charges. With Realme X2, it reaches its highest temperature by the 17th minute itself. But for Poco X2, it reaches the highest temperature by the 53rd minute. The difference is much starker when it comes to the charging block. If you see here, right, Realme X2 almost reaches to a temperature of 55 degrees Celsius, whereas Poco X2 goes up to maximum of 48 degrees Celsius. So that's how we have been able to better both the charging speed and at the same time manage heat effectively. So we have completed the processor, the battery, and now to the RAM and ROM storage. So with Poco X2, you get 8 GB of LPDDR4X RAM and 256 GB of UFS 2.1 storage. So to sum it up all together, you have an amazing phone that gives you sustained peak performance. Qualcomm Snapdragon 730G, liquid cool technology, UFS 2.1 storage, 8 GB of LPDDR4X RAM, 4,500 milliamp hour battery, and 27-watt fast charger in the box. So that's performance, guys. You like it till now? Yes. Next, the camera section. I'm sure all of us here like to have a good camera along with your phones, correct? So with Poco F1, actually we created a good camera legacy. In fact, if you look at the photos which were taken by photographers and pocographers, as we like to call it, it's just beautiful. It tells an amazing story altogether. Now, with this kind of a legacy, it was only fair to actually kind of, increase or step up in the game of camera department. So, for Poco X2, for the very first time, we are bringing the Sony 64-megapixel IMX686 camera, guys. This is a brilliant primary sensor. Guys, by the way, I have been using the phone myself. I'm not a pro, by the way, but I can trust me when I'm saying this. If you like Poco F1's camera, you will love camera on X2. It's just amazing. Let me just elaborate what the camera department for Poco X2 is. We have 4 sensors in the rear, starting with the 64-megapixel Sony sensor, 2-megapixel depth sensor, 8-megapixel ultra-wide-angle camera, and 2-megapixel macro sensor. In the front, we have dual in-screen cameras. the 20 megapixel being the primary, and 2 megapixel being the second, being the depth sensor. So now to understand what this can deliver, let's take a look at all the sensors one by one, starting with the 64 megapixel Sony sensor. So we already knew that we were getting really good images with the sensor. So what we did was our team actually traveled to Run of Kutch and took some really good shots. The image I'm going to show you next is probably my favorite shot, so let's take a look at that. This is the image I was talking about. You see the camera, it's so beautifully taken. You can see the colors very vibrantly, and at the same time, all the tattoos on the photo or the image is kind of retained very clearly and is visible. But by the way, guys, this is not the actual image that was taken. This is the photo. So brilliant capture of details with the 64 megapixel Sony sensor. But I understand that there are already a lot of 64 megapixels in the market. Let us try to compare ours with the Realme X2's 64 MP. On the left, you have Poco X2's 64 megapixel sensor, the Sony sensor. On the right, it's Realme X2. What you see here, it's a very difficult situation to kind of handle. You have a lot of dark shadows here, a little bit of sky on the top. Now let us see which captures the details more clearly. We are zooming in, and as you can see, with Poco X2, all the details are retained. Realme X2 has more washed out and more overexposed here. In fact, the much better difference will be the grill. From the grill, if you see, it's very apparent that Poco X2 gives more details than the Realme X2. So that's the performance in the daylight. Now let's talk about the performance in the low light. The 64 megapixel Sony sensor actually performs extremely well even in the low light conditions. It's primarily because of 4-in-1 pixel binning, where the sensor gets an effective pixel size of 1.6 microns. So let's take a look at another image to understand how. This is an example of the photo that has been taken by Poco X2 in night. The camera adjusts incredibly well. You see here, the exposure is very nice, and there is little noise as well. So that's the beauty of 64 megapixel Sony sensor. Second, the 2 megapixel depth sensor. With this sensor, you can take very nice portrait shots. Please see here, the focus is on the subject, the image, the background in the back is blurry. So that's the beauty of the 2 megapixel depth sensor. The third, the 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle camera. With the 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle camera, you can actually get 120 degrees field of view. With this, you can actually take brilliant landscape photos. Lastly, we have the macro sensor. By the way, the macro sensor in Poco X2 can go as close as 2 centimeters. Now let us try to understand the difference between Poco X2 sensor versus Realme X2. Realme X2 can go as close as 4 centimeters without losing details, but let's compare Poco X2 versus Realme X2. As you can see, the image here, all the details are retained, including the lines on the shell, whereas Realme X2, it is not the case here. So Poco X2 does a brilliant job even in macro photography. So this is the camera department, guys, but we are trying to do something new here. For all the creators here and across the country, we are bringing 3 new features. First, raw image capture. So for all the professional photographers here, you can do post-processing skills. Yep. Thank you. The next, 960 FPS slow motion capture. For all the people who like platforms like TikTok, you can create amazing content with 960 FPS slow motion capture. Agree? Yeah. Now, we are also bringing new feature called vlog mode. Let me show you a video, and then we can try to understand what it is. Vlog mode, guys. So what it does, it takes the user step by step, and you don't need to be doing a post-processing here. The phone automatically does it and gives you a very brilliant output. We have 7 styles. What you saw were only 2 styles, and I'm actually looking forward to all of you to kind of see what the kind of content you will create and share with us. So that's the vlog mode. Moving on, we have the front-facing in-screen cameras. We have the 20 megapixel primary sensor and 2 megapixel secondary sensor. With this, you can take very nice portrait selfies. By the way, if you see the implementation, we feel that it is better than a notch, primarily because of two reasons. You have much more wider area so that you can have space for your notification icons, and you also tend to adapt to these in-screen cameras over time. So that's the in-screen cameras. So overall, coming back to the rear cameras, we have the 64 megapixel sensor, the Sony sensor, 8 megapixel ultra-wide, 2 megapixel macro, and 2 megapixel depth. Now let us put this against the Realme X2's camera. With Poco X2, you get the Sony sensor. You have a 2 megapixel macro, but which can go as close as 2 centimeter focal length, whereas it's not the case with Realme X2. Now coming to raw image capture and block mode, these are certain details which we are bringing for all our fans. So what you have seen that Poco X2 is a great phone when it comes to the image department. But trust me when I'm saying this, guys, it also does a wonderful job when you're taking videos. Let me show you an example of that. Oh, sorry, that's my way. Thank you. Thanks. After looking at the video, I felt that I should have gone and not my team, by the way. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. So to sum it up, Poco X2 comes with a 64 megapixel AI quad rear camera. This is the first time the Sony IMX686 is coming to India. And along with that, we have vlog mode, 960 FPS slow motion capture, and of course, raw image capture as well. In the front, we have the 20 megapixel and the 2 megapixel sensor for your front selfies. So that's the camera section, guys. Are you with me? Yes. Now, moving on to the final section, the design section. Actually, if you look at our phone, it's a 6.67 inch, which as I already told you, it has an aspect ratio of 20:9, but it feels very comfortable while you're holding it. Extremely well designed, and it has a brilliant ergonomic design. So it's very comfortable to hold. But at the same time, what we have done, interestingly, is have a physical fingerprint on the side. So if you're a right-handed person, your thumb is always on the fingerprint. If you're a left-handed person, either the index finger or the middle finger will be on the fingerprint scanner to unlock your phone. Moving on to the curved Gorilla Glass 5 that we have on the back for Poco X2. Along with GG5 having in the back, we also have Gorilla Glass 5 in the front. Next, we have the speaker, which is extremely nice, loud, and clear, which is the 1217 super linear speaker. We have also retained the headphone jack, guys. So yeah, I think that's becoming a norm right now, I guess. But yeah, we have the headphone jack, as I already mentioned. Now moving on to the colors. There are 3 colors that we are launching. The first one is Atlantis Blue. Yeah. The second one is Matrix Purple. And the third one is Phoenix Red. Okay, now let's do something, guys. I will call out each and every name of the color. Let's make some noise for the people who like that color. So let's start with Atlantis Blue. Who likes Atlantis Blue? Okay, that's a loud cheer. Now, what about Phoenix Red? Okay. Matrix Purple? Man, I'm really not able to figure out which one has the highest mood. Okay, great, awesome. But nevertheless, these are brilliant colors, and we really like, and we really hope that you like these phones. Now, the next section which I would want to talk about is about Poco's journey. The reason why we are here today is because of the love and affection and the feedback you guys have been sharing. So the next section is all about those features that you asked for, and we are trying to get it. First, the kernel source. Starting today, Poco X2's kernel source will be available on GitHub. The first thing we are doing. Second, IR blaster. Poco F1 did not have an IR blaster, and you guys asked us to get it back. So it has an IR blaster. And as I already told you, raw capture image is something which you guys asked for. One of the issues that you all faced is also connectivity issues, primarily in enclosed spaces like offices and apartments. So what we are doing is having VO Wi-Fi support out of the box. This is a very neat way of solving the connectivity issues. Everyone remembers P2i, right? Yeah. So in fact, if you recollect, Poco F1 was the first phone to come with P2i splash-proof resistant technology. So we are glad to bring that back to Poco X2, and now you can be safe with Poco X2. So this is functionality / features we are getting for Poco X2. But at the same time, we also want to thank you guys. And the way we are doing it is we are creating something called special edition packaging, which is this. What we have done is essentially, if you see the box, the names of the first set of team members and the fans and the developers' names are actually written. This is our simple way of saying thanking you for the kind of information / feedback / love and affection you guys are giving. So thank you once again, guys. Thank you. So what you're seeing here is another image of the same. So now you understand what Poco X2 is. Let us take a quick look at the product video to realize this. Yes. So Poco X2 is a brilliant phone. It has everything you need and nothing you don't. Reality flow 120 Hertz, Qualcomm Snapdragon 730G, liquid cooled technology, 8 GB of storage, and for the first time, 64 megapixel Sony sensor in the country. Now, it comes in 3 variants, guys. 6 GB of storage, 6 GB of RAM and 64 GB of storage, and all the way up to 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage. So what should be the price, guys? Okay, I'm hearing a lot of stuff, a lot of details. So let's do one thing. Let us compare Poco X2 with Realme X2 and try to understand what the price should be. So as you can see, Poco X2 has a 120 Hertz display, Realme X2 does not. The processor, both share the same processor, but Poco X2 comes with a liquid cooled technology, Sony IMX 686 64 megapixel for the very first time in the country. The starting RAM-ROM variant is the 6 GB RAM, whereas it is here the 4 GB RAM, and it costs 16,999, the Realme X2. So what should be our price, guys? Okay, let me just make it clear. Thank you, guys. It's 15,999. The 6 plus 64 Poco X2 starts at 15,999. And the 6 GB plus 128 GB variant, 16,999. And the 8 GB plus 256 are 19,999. So let's take a look at in the entirety. So Poco X2 with the 6 GB variant starts at 15,999, whereas Realme X2 starts at 16,999. And that's how Poco X2 outperforms the competition. Now, not just this, we are bringing some more sweeteners. We would like to thank our ICICI Bank to bring 1,000 rupees instant discount for the credit card and debit card EMI transactions. Now, to the Poco X2 price. So effective price is 14,999, guys. Poco X2's effective price is 14,999 and goes all the way up to 18,999 if you include the ICICI card offer. Lastly, to the availability. Poco X2 will be available on Flipkart starting 11th Feb, starting 12 noon. So that's Poco X2, guys, with in it all its glory. 6 plus 64 at 15,999, all the way to 19,999. Reality Flow 120 Hertz, 64 megapixel sensor, 8 GB of RAM, 45 milliamp hour battery, and 27 watt fast charging in the box. So thank you so much for joining, guys. This is extremely lovely to have you guys here for showing all the love and affection. Let's do one thing. Let's take a quick selfie with the Poco X2. Can I get this phone? And just first, let me. Say, let's cheer up. Yeah, thank you. So let's take a look and take a quick picture with the phones here. No, I'll just take one. Sir, Aditya.